I hear all that. Makes a lot of sense, especially what you said about the defensive side. And if you can stop, and we're going to get into some of the key head-to-heads later, but if you can stop Saka, it's a great way of stopping Arsenal. Who are your key players that you think don't just need to be good, Giuseppe? They're going to have an astounding game. Who are the people you're looking to really help drag your team up forward?
Well, we got Declan Rice, 100%. He's going to be one of the key players. If he plays like he played against Real Madrid, then he's unplayable almost. I think Timber. There's the one thing I'll say is Timber hasn't. Oh, funny enough, yeah, he's saying Timber as well. Timber hasn't been roasted once. Yeah, and I know I don't want to jinx anything, touch wood.
You might have just done
it. But he don't get rinsed. He just don't. He's so good. Like he's actually a very underrated player, in my opinion. I think he's going to be key because the wing is where he's going to have Kvaratskhelia to deal with, right? So I think he's going to be key. I think Saka, obviously. I think Martinelli is going to be a lot more key than people realize. The way Hakimi gets forward, I think that Martinelli might stop that being able to be a possibility all game because he can catch you. And Martinelli's fast. We see against. I know they were going all out attack, but we saw against Real Madrid what Martinelli can do if you give him that space and the ball comes over. Partey in the second game, 100%. He's not in the first game. I think whoever goes into that midfield with Rice is going to be key. I personally think it's going to be Moreno, and then we're going to play Trossard up top. And I think Lewis Skelly. I know. Obviously, Lewis Skelly's young, and not to put bare pressure on him, but I think he stepped up in every single game, and he's going to have a good task to do here because he's going to have Hakimi and Doué. Or who plays normally on the right hand side? It's Doué, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to be doing this game.
Yeah, so Doué, he's going to have a lot to deal with there, and obviously Saliba. But Saliba's so on it and he knows PSG inside out. Out of anyone in our team, he probably knows them more than anyone. And yeah, I'm not too defensive. I'm actually comfortable with now, right? Before I weren't with Kivior, but he's gained my trust through the Real Madrid games. I just think that we've got enough defensively. It's more offensively that we need players to step up. So for me, they're the key players. I'd love to see Odegaard really step up in this game. I don't know how much faith I have in that because I just think he needs the season to be over personally. He needs a preseason, but him stepping up could be a big difference maker in this game. That definitely how he plays, and against this PSG team, we might need something like that.
Viewers, give us your views and opinions on the key players in terms of PSG's approach. Ince, where do you attack Arsenal? Where do you see them being most vulnerable, and where do you think you can sort of win those key battles and therefore come out on top?
Looking back at the previous game we had versus Arsenal, as I mentioned before, I don't want to take too much away from it, but one thing that was key was Arsenal pressing high. Obviously, I think they would once again press high, try to win the ball back. And as we saw from PSG versus Liverpool away versus Aston Villa away, we are very lethal from counterattack. So that's for me the key for us to exploit Arsenal. When they press us up, make sure to progress the ball. Sure, sometimes we will fail. Sometimes maybe Timber wins it, maybe Skelly wins it, maybe Rice wins it. But when we do get through the Arsenal press, we have to be really quick because Arsenal are very good at recovering as well. But for me, that's the best way to exploit this Arsenal side on the counter-attack. If we get a lead and then Arsenal have to come to us, I think that's also favorable to us. So I would say counter-attack is the best way to exploit this Arsenal side. Because, I mean, they're very good defensively. There aren't that many other stuff we can exploit them at. So I would say counter-attack.
And who's the player? Who's maybe the one individual or two individuals that you think you could really go at? Stick a player on him where you think you could pull on a sort of a chink in the armor, as it were, and maybe exploit Arsenal?
Obviously, with Timber, I saw him versus Vinny. I saw him versus Barcola in the group stage. He's very good. So I don't think it's Timber out of the two fullbacks. I think Skelly, especially because we attack a lot down the right hand side. We get Hakimi there, Neves tucks in, Dembele drops, and then you got Du as well. So it's a complete overloadment there on the right side. So I'm looking at that as something as we can do. Another thing I'm looking at Arsenal is when they're gonna get the ball from their defensive line and trying to move it out of our press. I think Rice as a 6 could be a possible press trigger as well. We could look at. Obviously, with Partey missing the game.
It's a great point with Partey missing. Are you concerned, Giuseppe, about Rice on the half turn, receiving the ball from your back line? Is that an area that PSG could target, attack, and maybe get some change from?
I don't know, man. Right now, if you've got, it's hard because right now, the recent form of Declan Rice, I just don't think so. I just really don't. I think out of anyone, he's the one that's going to be the one holding the shield. You know, I think he's going to be one of the least people to be aiming for. I think you want to stay away from him on the pitch. Personally, I get the half turn stuff and all that, but I just don't. I feel like Rice is smart enough and in enough good form to know what's going to happen, and the game plan will be there. I don't know a player that they can target for Arsenal, personally, that's defensively going to get a lot of joy out of. I think it was right what you said, brother. I think your best way is counterattacks and catching us with pace and just catching us on the transition, because I just think if we're sitting back, if we're back and we've got our players back, it's tough. It's tough, and I'll bet us against any team defensively. You know, I think that your biggest thing is you have to be clinical in this game. I think we also need to be clinical, but I think you need to be more clinical than us, because I generally don't see Arsenal giving up a lot of chances. I generally don't, but I don't really see that as an issue with Rice personally, and I don't think. Listen, their midfield's good. Their midfield's great. I still personally think Rice gets into their midfield. So I just don't see him as the weak link. If anything, is going to be the midfielder that comes in with Rice. You know,
you think who would Rice displace in that PSG midfield, in your opinion?
I think he's better than I think he's better than Neves. And I think he's better than what's the other fella's name? Not Vitinha, the other one. Ruiz. Yeah, I think he's better than both of them. Vitinha's a bit different of a player, so I wouldn't count him. But I think he's better. Look, Neves is great. I really like him. I did actually say it. I wouldn't have minded about Arsenal. Great player. I just think at the moment Rice is just still a bit better than him. But obviously Ruiz. Neves is still very young, right? He's still got Rice has a few years and experience on him. But for me, yeah, Rice gets into the midfield.
Okay.
What do you make of that claim? Just out of interest, Ince. I mean, you've got probably the most technical midfield in Europe. Barcelona may have a challenge on that with the talent they have. Could you see Rice getting into your team if he signed for PSG in the summer?
Honestly, I don't think he's technical enough to play for Paris Saint-Germain. If he plays as an offensive 8, as someone, because that's what happens with Rice, especially with Skelly, when he inverts, Rice pushes up and basically becomes an offensive 8. And then I would say maybe the technicality in the deep third isn't as important. And he's actually very good in the final third, has a great shot, actually underrated playmaker as well in the final third, Declan Rice. So potentially as an offensive 8, obviously very athletic as well. But just technically, we saw Manuel Ugarte last season. I'm not comparing Ugarte to Rice. I'm just saying both of them are players, not the best with the ball. Even though Rice is better than Ugarte, I see Rice struggling with similar stuff at PSG, because at PSG, it's high technical expectation in the double pivot in the midfield. So, yeah, I don't think he would.
That makes sense. In terms of the managers, it's going to be an interesting touchline battle. Mikel Arteta managing his first Champions League semi-final. Enrique, of course, has been there before, worn the t-shirt, won the trophy. Should we expect any particular tactical wrinkles, mind games in the first leg, and how cautious or aggressive do you think your respective coaches would be? We'll go to PSG Ints first. How sort of cautious or aggressive do you think he'll be in in the first game?
What do you mean by that question? I don't.
So do you feel that your manager might throw a curveball in, maybe start someone we're not expecting, change something up formation wise? Do you feel that maybe you could come, this is hypothetical because I'm just throwing it out there, you know more about your team, could you come out and be really aggressive in the opening 10-15 minutes? Could you maybe sit back and absorb, maybe Arsenal not expecting it? How do you think your manager will approach the game? Will it be business as usual, or do you think there could be a bit of a wrinkle, a bit of a little bit of a curveball to try and throw Arsenal off?
No, I think Luis Enrique is a very stubborn manager. Sometimes he's even too stubborn. Sometimes his stubbornness has led us to lose some potential games. But as you mentioned, he's a bit similar to Pep Guardiola. We remember Pep Guardiola from that infamous mistake in the Champions League final versus Chelsea, where what was it? He decided not to start Fernandinho or something. So sometimes Luis Enrique has shown to do some questionable lineup changes before Champions League games, especially last season. But this season, both Liverpool games, both Aston Villa games, there was no trickery with the lineup. And I think he will do the same. I think he was confident in his team. And when it comes to PSG team, I mean, the defense, we know, the midfield, we know. The only question mark is Barcola. Barcola is somewhat of a wild card now that Due has been outperforming him. Maybe Barcola starts, but I don't see any big personal change going into this game. Tactically, I think it will be a usual PSG game where we will look to try to have possession. We will try to press, counter press, win the ball back. But as we've seen in the previous two away games, we will be slightly conservative than we are at home. So we won't be as high up. We sometimes we will be okay with Arsenal having the ball, and we will look to counter more than full out guns blazing. So I think it would just be a bit similar to how we perform versus Liverpool away. So no like extraordinary change or surprise for this game. I don't think so. No.
Giuseppe Frank here in the comments, one of our members. Thank you, Ints, by the way. Thank you. Frank says Arsenal are well set up to do very well in big games. Do you think it'll be the same approach we see when you play the sort of traditional top six in the Premier League? Will it be similar, or do you think there could be a wrinkle? Could there be a curveball?
Nah, I think if the curveball comes, it comes in the second leg away from home. I think we've done that in the Real Madrid game. A lot of people thought we were going to shut up shop and just trying to see the game out. I don't think we've really done that at all. I think it will be business as usual against the big six. Against the big teams in England, against the big teams. I think very much how even we approached the first game against PSG in the Champions League this season. We PSG are very technical, but Arsenal are very good at not letting the other team do anything with the ball. Arsenal are very good at controlling the games. Like that's I generally believe that PSG got the worst team for them possible in this tournament left. I think if you looked at all the teams that left, I'm not saying we're the best out of the three teams that are left, but I think out of the three teams that are left, Arsenal were probably the least favourable for PSG. I think obviously they've got the more experienced manager. If you're looking at success and all that, they've got the better manager. Don't write off Mikel Arteta. People did that against Ancelotti and he completely schooled him. Tactically as well, it wasn't just Will Better. He tactically schooled Ancelotti in that game. I do think Enrique is a better manager than Ancelotti currently now. But listen, I think it's going to be a very good game, man. Two Spanish managers. It's going to be a great game. I think Arsenal might. I don't think they're going to surprise Arsenal fans. They might surprise rivals that don't watch us a lot, but I don't think they'll surprise Arsenal fans. I think we'll start with a high press. I think we'll start on them. We'll start like we did against Real Madrid. We'll give them no time at the start of the game, and we'll start.
So Marzi here with the super chat says it's going to be a physicality versus technical ability game, and there is an element to that. There's not disrespect. Arsenal have got some good technicians like Odegaard, Saka, but it does feel in terms of that midfield battle, it does feel it's going to be a little bit more. I don't want to say brains versus brawn. I think that's a little disrespectful to Arsenal to act like they've got no brain, but there is an element of that in this game. Do you feel?
There's an element to it, but I think I don't get where this is coming from. That Arsenal ain't technical. I don't know where this is where this is coming from. Arsenal are quite technical. I think definitely if we start Moreno in the midfield, I believe Moreno and Odegaard are quite technically gifted players. But I think Arsenal, you got. Was you going to say something?
No, they are. Someone just said Odegaard laughing. To say that Odegaard hasn't got good technical ability.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
I think it all depends on what people mean by technical ability.
Yeah.
I think you do. The thing is here with PSG, I'll give you an example. Tyson Fury is technically a good boxer, but Usak's better technically, and you saw that when they had a fight. And he was so good technically that he was able to nullify the physical difference between the two. That's what I'm intrigued about this. You do have technical players. You can punish them on the ball. But I'm intrigued to see whether I would say that PSG are a better technical team overall. And but I think you're more physical. You've got more physicality. I like that dichotomy. I like that difference. And I'm really excited to see which one can come out on top tomorrow night, if that makes sense. So I don't think I'm not suggesting it's Bolton Wanderers versus Arsenal from 2005 or anything like that. But there's a nice dichotomy.